infection and infectious disease. So, infection is the invasion of the body of living organism, the host, by another living organism, the agent. So, if the host-agent relationship is benefit the agent but does not harm the host, the relationship is called commensalism. While if it benefits both of them, both the host and the agent, then the relationship is called mutualism. But if the relationship benefits only the agent but does not benefit the host, then it is called parasitism. So you see, relationship usually resolve in afferent infection or inafferent infection. There is what we call infectious disease. Then if the relationship, if, for example, now if there is infection and it is now as a result of the agent, living organism agent, infect. So if that agent the host can be able to infect another person, another host, then it's called infectious disease. But sometimes if the infection does not allow the host to infect another living organism, then it results in what we call inafferent infection. You may have you have the infection, but it's not showing any clinical manifestation. You may have the infection, while you may have the infection, but it can be infectious, or may have the infection, but it's inafferent, but you are still be able to have the infection. So we have to understand that there can be an infection without a disease, and then infection is not synonymous with the infectious disease. When you are infected, it's not synonymous with the infectious disease. The result of most infection is also inafferent. So you find out that means it's subclinical. It's not showing any clinical manifestation. The number of parasites necessary to initiate disease varies with the virulence of the agent and the resistance of the host. And also, the larger the number of parasites, the greater the chance of infection. So if you drink water with a very few number of, say, salmonella organism, you find out you may not come down with disease. Sometimes you see people drinking water, but they don't come down with the disease because the number is not necessary to cause an infection. You didn't reach what you call threshold of infection, the necessary number of organisms to initiate an infection. So you find out whenever a parasite is exposed, when a host is exposed to a parasite, a single host is exposed to a parasite, that means there is infection. Whenever there is infection, there is what we call invasion of the body of a living organism, the host, by another living organism, the agent. So whenever the host is exposed to a parasite, one of the following will happen. One of the following four will happen. Number one, either the parasite may die quickly. This is as a result of the body of the host is resistant. Very resistant host, highly resistant host, whereby the host is very much prepared, and you find out it has immunological body to fight the infectious agent. You find the parasite may quickly die, and thereby result in infection. No infection will occur. Number two, the parasite may embed and survive in the host without the host showing any overt clinical signs in afferent infection. That means no any sign. However, its presence may cause the host immune response to initiate immunoglobulins in the body of the host, or may not, which may prevent reinfection. So you find out when you are exposed to the parasite. Here the parasite means infectious agent, be it bacteria, be it virus, be it fungi, whatever it is. When the host is exposed to the agent, you find out it may not necessarily develop clinical signs, and thereby may or may not, thereby may cause a host reaction, which may prevent the infection. Thereby, so it can help the body of the host to prepare itself against reinfection. Number 3 is the parasite may embed and survive and cause clinical disease. This may or may not be followed by immune response, which not prevent the infection. So it's like there is what we call, if there is infection, it can result in embedding and survival of the agent, which will cause an infection, which will cause a disease. It means the body of the host is not able to protect itself, so it can now result in the disease, clinical manifestation of the disease. And if there is clinical manifestation of the disease, since many pathological changes has occurred, activities has occurred in the body of the host, thereby the host may or may not be followed by elicitation of immunological response, and thereby may not necessarily prevent the infection. Another scenario, number 4, is the parasite may kill the host. So if the parasite is highly virulent, or maybe it has already overcome the body immunological response of the host, and at the end it may be able to kill the host. So you see, host population, now we are talking of the population of the host. For example, people living in a particular village now. So that people living in a particular village may consist of various categories of people. Some of the hosts are highly resistant, some are moderately resistant, some are highly susceptible. So now the scenario is when a parasite is exposed to a population, one of the following 3 patterns will occur. Number 1, certain individual may or may not be exposed to the agent, and certain individual may be resistant, and hence there will be no infection. That is number 1. You find out a parasite is exposed to a population, for example, a population of a classroom or population of a village people. So that is a mixture of people with the various immunological response, immunological competency. You find out when you expose a parasite, what will happen. Some people may not even be exposed to that agent, while some may be exposed to the agent, but they are highly resistant to the agent, thereby may not necessarily develop the disease, and therefore no infection will occur in them. Number 2 is certain individual will be infected but will show no clinical signs in after infection. The host parasite here in this case is what we call as commensalism. They are living in harmony with the agent and host in equilibrium relationship. While the third scenario is certain individual will develop the infectious disease, and the relationship is parasitism. So you see certain individuals who are very weak, who are not much resistant, that means they are highly susceptible, may be able to acquire the agent and develop the disease and develop clinical manifestation of the disease, and thereby it will affect those individuals. So you find out these 3 categories of event will occur when a parasite is exposed to the population. Now you see infection is normally divided into two. We have what we call acute infection and the persistent infection. Acute infection normally the clinical sign manifested in a very relatively short time and the agent are eliminated. So that is acute, very short, very short. The agent will be will be will be shown, but later on the agent will be eliminated. So it's like sometimes you may have a disease, and then later on when it has a very short time disease, but when you go for diagnosis, you may not see the agent necessary, and this is what is happening because it's an acute disease. It just occur within short time, and the agent is eliminated. That means the body immunological immune response of the body has eliminated the agent, has killed the agent. Thereby, the disease has just gone. So you have a disease, but after maybe 2-3 weeks, you go for test, you will not see any organism causing the disease, probably due to acute infection. Very short and brief clinical manifestation. So, but in the persistent infection, this is infections that last longer period of time. You see, an infection that lasts longer period of time is what we call persistent infection. So even those infections with a very long period of time, they are divided into three categories again. We have latent infection, we have chronic infection, we have slow infection. So you see, latent infection are persistent infection with intermittent episode with intermittent acute episode of the disease, between which the agent is usually not demonstrable. So you see, it's a long persistent infection, and it's called latent because it is associated with what we call acute intermittent acute episode. You see, it's acute, then it's not acute again, then it's acute, then it's not acute again. So you find out the agent is usually not demonstrable. Why is it not demonstrable? You cannot find the agent because it is with that issue of persistent, with issue of acute episode. It's acute wherever you can see the agent, but when it is down, you will not see the agent. So that is latent infection. While chronic infection is also a persistent infection in which the agent is always demonstrable and often shed, but the disease is either absent or is associated with immunopathological disturbances. So that is chronic. The agent is always demonstrable. Whenever you go and for diagnosis, you see the agent. But the disease, you find that you may not have the disease, or the disease may be absent. But it's always associated with the immunopathological disturbances. So the disease itself is also been in a state of disturbances. You find out the last one, the third one, is what you call slow infection. Slow infection is also a type of persistent infection with a long incubation period, followed by slowly progressive disease that is usually lethal. Example, we have HIV/AIDS. It has a very long incubation period, and then you find out it is now followed by, after a very long incubation period, then it begin to see the manifestation of the disease, and it's now followed by slowly progressive disease, a very slowly progressive disease that continue to progress. For animal, you see animals sometimes they may have incubation periods like bisna in sheep. You may see animal having to take 2 to 3 years without the showing any clinical signs, then it may begin to cause the clinical signs and thereby having the disease. Now, issue of what we call carrier of disease. A carrier is an individual or that are infected, that they shed the microorganism without showing any clinical signs. So if you remember the issue of typhoid Mary in the secondary school biology textbook, whereby is somebody who used to sell food. He has a typhoid, a carrier of typhoid, a kind of chronic typhoid. He has the disease, which is always demonstrable, but is not showing any clinical apparent manifestation. So he continued to shed the agent causing the typhoid, and thereby people are becoming typhoid, those who are associated with eating food in that canteen. So that is why it's very important that when you are selling food, you have to be screened for all those diseases and make sure that you are not a carrier, so that you can be able to serve the food and people have the food in a very good situation. So this issue of carrier, the carrier sometimes is animate or inanimate. For example, if a person who is carrying the disease-causing agent is a person, so it's an animate, while it can be inanimate. For example, maybe it's associated with the well water, the particular well water that is contaminated with disease-causing organism, or maybe poisonous substances. So you see, the carrier can be animate or inanimate, which is the natural habitat of the disease-causing organism, from where they will continue to be shed into the environment, affecting individual to individual, affecting various individuals, and from one individual to another individual. So we have three types of carriers. The first one is what we call a true carrier. A true carrier is an infectious individual which can shed the agent without showing any clinical sign. That is a true carrier. Now, there is what we call an incubatory carrier. A carrier that is still incubating the disease organism. So a incubatory carrier is an infected individual which sheds the agent while still incubating the disease before the clinical signs appear. For example, rabies virus can be shed by infected animal 2 to 3 days before the apparent clinical manifestation in the dogs. So a dog may have rabies virus, but before the incubation of 2 to 3 days, the agent, the host, the dog, can be able to secrete the agent through bite. So before the clinical manifestation. Number 3 is convalescent carrier. A carrier that is getting well. He has disease and he is now getting well. So it's like he can still carry out the transmission of the disease. So a convalescent carrier is an infected animal that continues to shed the agent even after the clinical signs have disappeared. So you find out you have the disease, but the clinical signs disappear. So you are now getting well. You are convalescent. You are getting well, but you can still at least transmit the agent. So that is the end of our lecture today. Thank you very much for watching.